Hey everyone, I'm so excited to introduce you to this inaugural episode of the Creative Operations podcast. Today we're going to get to know your host, Kevin. Kevin, welcome to your show.
Well, thank you, Christopher. I appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself. How'd you get where you are today?
Sure. So, my history in creative operations stems all the way back to the beginning of my career as a copywriter. I was part of an agency. I was actually a partner in an agency with two really delightful gentlemen. One of them was a creative director. One of them was the account guy, the suit. And I was sort of the Turk among us in terms of always coming up with ideas for getting us into trouble. And one day we went to visit one of the largest consulting firms in the world. And we were pitching them on a piece of business. And the pitch went very well. So we got in the car when we were driving back to the shop. And my partner, the suit, calls on his car phone. We had car phones back then to talk to our other partner, the creative director, the designer, to tell him the good news. And he says, I've got good news and I've got bad news. And Chris says, well, what's the good news? He says, we won the account. This is an account with more than 2,000 locations worldwide. And Chris says, that's amazing. What's the bad news? And Mike says, we got the account. We won the account. Because how on earth are we, our little shop, going to serve 2,000 offices for one of the largest consulting firms in the world? How are we going to do that? And it was then that we began to investigate technology as a solution for making creative operations scale. So fast forward quite a number of years, we built a technology solution that allowed our in-house agency to support those 2,000 users in the field. And along the way, as we began to develop that technology, we learned a ton of things. I think we learned a lot about technology, but we learned even more about people, about the folks at the local level, and the folks at the regional level, and the folks at the brand level, and all the different problems and opportunities that they faced every day. And so the software began to evolve. And before you knew it, we had over 100 customers on the system. And that was just with our first three brands. Beyond that first consulting company. And we began to see that we didn't just have a studio, we had a product. And that's how I got into this game.
Interesting. So tell me a little bit more about the company today and where things are at.
Sure. So Pica 9 and its product Campaign Drive, we are one of the founding members of what we call the brand to local portal business. We are a New York-based organization primarily, although now we're almost all remote. The entire team is spread to the four winds. We serve right now about 150,000 local businesses, and we're on a path. We're on a hunt to serve 1 million local businesses through the brands that create the marketing materials and the brand assets that drive their operations every day. So we're getting there. Right, we're getting toward what we used to think of as an audaciously huge, almost unattainable goal. And we are. I like to think of us as a really nimble, agile team combined of software developers for sure. Mm-hmm. That's the beating heart of the business. But right next to it is a whole team of designers who've begun to experiment, or not just begun, have been experimenting for years with how to take beautiful design, beautiful branding elements, and make them accessible to folks who don't have the kind of training and aesthetics that designers have. And so we've been plying these fields for quite a number of years, and I think we've learned a lot along the way, and we've had a lot of fun along the way. And now we've tried to embody that in our software, and our software is getting, I think, stronger and faster and easier, literally every week.
That's really exciting. And I think that leads us to the podcast today, specifically for the person that you serve. So why the Creative Operations Podcast? Why now? And who is this for?
Yeah. So Creative Operations has really emerged because the field, the profession of design itself has to become more democratic. It has to be more distributed. When we talk to in-house agencies, and we work a ton with in-house agencies for major brands, here's what we hear again and again. We hear that they're overloaded with mechanical requests from the field, from their local franchisees or their local dealers or their local resellers. So much are they overwhelmed by those one off requests, they don't have the time to do the work that they were trained to do. The high level branding, strategy, creative work. They're pinned down, if you will, by mechanical requests so that they can't get to that higher level kind of functioning. That's a painful place to be if you're a creative. Whether you're a copywriter or you're a designer or you're, a brand manager, you're not really getting to do the stuff you enjoy the most. But there's a second person in that equation that you have to keep in mind, and that's that local marketer themselves. They might be a restaurant manager. They might be a hotel manager. They might be just the owner of a small chain restaurant or shop, and they have to do everything from run the cashier to hire people to take care of parking problems. And in the midst of all that, they need to get marketing done, and they don't have the skills, they don't have the training, they don't have the background to know when something is difficult and when it's easy, when it's on brand and when it's off brand. Those are the folks that we are trying to make sure we serve every single day. Those are the million businesses. In order to do that, and who this Creative Operations podcast is really for, are the experts who spent their careers building marketing intelligence and branding intelligence and design skill and savvy and talent and bring all that to bear so that they can create assets that those folks in the field can use quickly and easily and without typical mistakes. One of the things we've seen a lot over the years, besides those one-off requests, is design teams or brand teams that just shake their head when they see what happened to their work. I think of that song, Look What They've Done to My Song. It's the only thing I can do half right, and it's turning out all wrong. Our creative operations folks, the folks that we really think about and empathize with every day, they feel that a lot. And our job, it's job of our system, is to try and make sure that we protect their work while activating the brand at the same time. And what's the Creative Operations podcast meant to be? All the softer issues, not just technology, but human issues that you need to think about, keep in mind as you try to achieve that objective, that blend of brand discipline and local activation. So that's who it's for, and that's what we're going to be talking about.
Oh, interesting. I love how you brought up the fact that this, at the end of the day, is about the people and the interactions, and how do we scale all these things and maintain the humanity around it, even if it's enabled through technology, right? Because it's an end user at the end of the day. It's an end customer that's walking in to one of these businesses that is being served. And to be able to communicate that, knowing that every small detail is going to have an impact.
A long time ago, early in my career, we used to spend weeks, sometimes months, building these brand binders. They were huge. They were 8 inches thick. And they were filled with everything. They had tear sheets and ad slicks and logo sheets and all sorts of stuff. And they had tons and tons of beautiful copy about what the brand is meant to be, what its voice and its essence was meant to be, and tons of rules, hundreds of rules about brand guidelines and how much clear space you want around your logo. Mm-hmm. If you handed that binder to somebody who hadn't created it, very often they would look at it as just a doorstop. They'd rarely even open it. Number one, because it told them what not to do. It didn't enable them to get done what they needed to get done. And number two, because it spoke a language that they didn't themselves speak. And so we found those brand binders. I did some in the insurance business and the mutual fund business, huge. That easily cost $250,000 to produce and that I think nobody ever read. So our mission in life is to transform that brand binder into the following user experience. A local marketer walks up to his Macintosh, or he opens up his phone, or he opens up his PC, whatever it might be. He searches for an asset using language that he knows, that he understands, finds the thing he's looking for, and then customizes it to his immediate or her immediate need without ever having the chance to make a mistake. And when they hit the submit button, sometimes there's an approval loop at the end of it all. Sometimes it goes straight to production. And we take a task that used to take days or weeks or hours, and we turn it into seconds or minutes. That's our job. And when we get it right, what we see is businesses accelerate. And when you multiply that, so you think back to that consulting firm I was mentioning, when you multiply that by 2,000 offices, all of which are now moving faster, moving more reliably, moving with greater brand integrity, you start to see the dial in revenues moving at the brand level. And that for us is, that really means we've got our job done. And for sure, it's not just technology. I mean, we have a host of technologies in our platform. There's digital asset management, and there's brand templating, and there's templating on the online side, and there's all kinds of content management components that are involved too. But at the end of the day, what matters is, did the local marketer figure out what he needed to get done and get it done in usually less than 5 minutes? If he can get it done in less than 5 minutes, again, we've done our job.
I think it's important to note that by reducing this opportunity for creative error, reducing the amount of human control, it actually opens up so much possibility and scale. It actually enables more creativity at a faster pace, impacting more people. And when it's being done effectively, it's turning the revenue dial at these individual locations, meaning there's a real quantifiable impact happening here. So let's talk about the podcast again. What do you hope happens with this show?
So with the show, what I hope is we meet people all the time who are on this journey. And believe me, the local marketing acceleration game is definitely a journey. I hope with this podcast, we meet people who are in the midst of that journey. Sometimes at the beginning, sometimes they've selected a solution and they're 2 years into really trying to get maximum value from it. Maybe they're just beginning to even think about moving from manual processes. But what I hope they would get from the podcast is concrete perspectives from people who are doing it, people who have done it, and who will talk to the human factor, not just the technology factor, but the human factor in creative operations. And there's a lot of human factors. There are designers who think that the word template, is a 4-letter word. We're going to talk about why it isn't. There are local marketers who think that Brand HQ should do all their marketing for them. A, they shouldn't think that, and B, they shouldn't want to think that, because when they do local marketing at the local level, they actually succeed more effectively than if they trust it to somebody else, if they leave it to somebody else. So those emotional and kind of attitudinal perspectives, those are things we want to dive into. And for sure, along the way, the podcast will talk about things like DAM, and it'll talk about things like metadata. But you can learn about those things in 100 different places. What I hope this podcast will uniquely talk about is how there's a triangle: the brand steward, the local marketer, and the local customer. That triangle is filled with really rich human things to talk about, and that's what I hope we focus on. Because when you get that relationship right, you can use any combination of technology, you'll succeed. And remember, our mission is is to do this at a scale that 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have thought completely unimaginable. And we're headed there now. Technology has taken us there. If you look at the tools that we're using, we're building new features faster than we thought possible, even a couple of years ago. But in the end, the technology is a tool to make that triangle, those 3 people, happy and productive every single day.
So I'd like to invite the listener right now, if you'd like to come along with us for this journey, is to hit that subscribe button, is to actually let us know, did you enjoy this? Are you looking forward to it? What types of topics would you like to hear about? Your feedback is needed and appreciated. So, Kevin, any closing thoughts before we wrap up today's episode?
I guess just one, and maybe it's we don't want to take ourselves too seriously here, right? I mean, creative operations is something I've always loved, and it's something you should love if you're going to be in the business. But there's a theme I came across a long time ago, and was from that designer partner of mine. We talked about how brands often try to hang on to their brand integrity really, really closely. They think of themselves as the brand police, right? But the theme I would leave you with is an old song from Revolver that said, "Hold on loosely, but don't let go." That's the blend that we find makes everybody in that triangle happy. So, we're going to hold on loosely to our thoughts and our learnings in this category, and then try not to let go of the central principles that make brand to local marketing really work. That's it.